Okay, well, thank you for coming. Should I just launch in?
Sure.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about the genesis of the project. I guess you could say there's a legacy of negativity in my family. I grew up in New York City, Jewish, and then when I moved to LA, my grandmother was in LA, and she was, I helped take care of her, and I would buy groceries and take her to the doctor. And she lived to 99, and one time I took her to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "Oh my God, you're 99, you look so great, and that's fantastic." And she said, "Yes, it's been a terrible century." So you can see how some of that transmitted down the generations. But I also think that anybody living through the last 15 or so years can't but have some degree of dark thoughts about what's happened in the world. And this was, I wanted to make a movie about a man who had sort of gone only in that direction. And I think I said somewhere that I use the workings of my own brain as research. So it's not that I'm actually that negative, but there is a part of me, I think, that's always has that rolling through my brain. So that's how I began. And then the sort of progression of getting the movie made, Matthew Broderick's an old friend of mine, and similarly cynical human being. And I gave him the script, and he loved it. And then it went from being a Josh Goldin movie to being a Matthew Broderick vehicle. And we went from there to CAA and got it packaged and made quite quickly. And we made the decision to shoot in Shreveport because we had a very, very low budget. It was shot for $1.7 million, and Shreveport gives very good tax incentives. So it was supposed to take place in Los Angeles, but we decided to make it any city USA, and shot it there in 21 days. And so.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you came up with the idea of a folk singer who was somehow on the sidelines of his own life, and how the presence of this Senegalese man and his sister sort of brought him back into the world.
Yeah, well, the folk singer part, I think, it was. I mean, I made him a folk singer, or actually, I made him a great guitarist before I made him a folk singer. The folk singing was something that he did for money, or the children's singing was something he thought of as something he did for money, even though it was high quality. I just, my father is an artist in New York, and I think I watched him, with all his talent, not always get appreciated. And it is, I think, something that there's a lot of people, I believe, who have the tragedy of being great at something that never gets recognized. I think that's actually a very personal, that's one of the hardest things to live with. So that was my reason for that. And it also is something that makes you project outward into a kind of anger towards the world. But the Senegalese Ibu, his roommate, is actually based on somebody I knew in real life, I worked in an insurance company, and an absolutely awful job. And he was one of the guys I was working with. He's this incredibly brilliant, absolutely self-taught man who he had left Senegal when he was very young, and all his memories of Senegal were refracted through childhood. And he actually told me that when he was a kid in Senegal, when it rained, fish fell from the sky. So that stayed with me for obvious reasons. And there's something about an immigrant, I think just any immigrant who comes to this country, and it's actually, you take somebody who's from a place like Senegal and you bring them to a supermarket, and it's just like, it's bounty, it's a fantastic thing, and they don't necessarily see it with a you know, in a cynical way. And so I wanted to put those two cultures together.
I think that in terms of knitting together, you know, a confluence of culture, I think you also very successfully knitted together this grappling with depraved indifference and the game theory. And I think that was a really wonderful piece of the writing. It really gave the script a lot of depth, I thought. And I just thought maybe you could speak to that a little bit as well.
Yeah, well, you know, I think if there's anything that the character learns, I mean, I sort of hate the phrase learns because it's always like, I don't think that main characters have to go through a learning process, but he learns to be okay with both the good and the bad. And he was somebody who was very black and white, and if things were bad, that's all he could see. And at the end, in fact, the direction I gave Matthew at the end when he's playing guitar is to experience two emotions at once, both all the awful things that happen in the movie and also the sort of sense of hope. I thought that his expression at the end really conveyed that, and that's what I believe game theory was in this movie, which was just the sense that, you know, somebody having a ulterior motive does not necessarily make him a bad person, and you can love somebody and want something from him too. That was really the key line. That I think the key line that hit the character was that, oh my God, that's, you know, it's not just a good world or a bad world. It's a mixed world.
And I think apropos of that, in the lobby we were talking a little bit about the role of the man and something about his character. So maybe we could talk a little bit about his as well.
About the man?
Well, yeah, he's not just referred to. He's seen. He's visceral.
He's seen. Yeah, I saw the man as sort of the physical embodiment of a kind of internal argument that Matthew's having with himself. You know, in some ways, the man represents that part of Matthew, or Ben Singer in this case, who's giving him the world's point of view, and he's knocking it down, and they have a sort of running disagreement that's almost platonic, like a platonic dialogue. There was a lot more of the man in the movie. We cut a lot of it because we felt that Matthew's performance and the way the movie worked was much more interesting to puzzle him out on his own.
I thought that the screen chemistry between Matthew and Sanaa Lathan was visceral as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, they're both great actors, and they both were very devoted to their roles. It was funny because they had no relationship off screen. They didn't have a bad relationship. They just had no relationship. But as soon as they started doing a scene, it came together. I think maybe both of them were in their own sort of orbits thinking it out, and then it came in very organically when they were together.